Chapter 6 is a very long chapter, so I'm going to break it down into two parts. Part 1, which describes a single day in Marseille and takes place over quite a few pages. And then the second part of this, which describes a period of several months that the family spend in Menton. So the focus of what I'm about to speak about now is just the first part of chapter 6, which just deals with their single day in Marseille. So at the end of chapter 5, we've left the boys at the station at Aire-sur-la-Dor. We don't see the journey narrated, although Joe does refer to it at the start of chapter 6. They've had a very different journey to Marseille. It's been a lot more relaxing. They've shared food with travellers. They've had money. And no questions have been asked of them because they are children. So on page 128, Joe makes this comment that j'avais l'impression d'être invisible. It seemed like I was invisible. So the boys are being treated very much as little boys. However, there are lots of stops on the There are lots of stops and delays on the journey, but it is a very different journey from the journey from Paris to Dax. Equally, the city that they've arrived in, Marseille, is very different to Paris. So Marseille, as you will know, is a Mediterranean city. Paris is in northern France, so a very different climate. But the biggest thing for the boys is that they've never ever seen the sea before, and Marseille is a port city. They are overwhelmed by the sea. They've never seen it before, as I said, and they're really taken aback by how impressive and how beautiful it is. So they arrive in a very different city to the one that they've left. And at the start of this chapter, they set off to look around as their train onto Menton has been delayed. It seems idyllic, although later we have the voice of the narrator coming through on page 129, telling us that actually it was quite a corrupt city with a lot of issues, like many big cities. On page 129, we've got the voice of the narrator. J'ai appris plus tard que le grand port était un haut lieu de gangstérisme, de la drogue, du plaisir, un Chicago européen. So lots of dark, seedy things going on in this city. However, on the surface, it's very idyllic for the boys, and they set off. Page 131 is where they see the sea for the first time. At the top, Maurice a réagi le premier, merde la mer. So completely taken aback by this view of the sea. On ne l'avait jamais vu. We'd never seen it. They head down to the ferry boat. They chat to the ferryman. After this chat, by accident, they wander into a red light area. And the ladies that are working there think it would be funny to steal Joe's beret. And they have a bit of a joke and a bit of a laugh between them. That all takes place on pages 134, 135. Then they head back to the cinema, which had always been their plan to watch this film, but it wasn't on until a little bit later. They watch a German film, and then afterwards they head back to the sea. And we see the imagination of Joe, the little boy, really coming to life on page 140, because Maurice looks over the sea and he says, "Par là, c'est l'Afrique." That's Africa over there. And Joe's looking into the distance as if he's going to see all these exotic animals and people crossing over the ocean, comme si j'allais voir surgir des singes, un lion, une négresse à plateau, des tontons, etc. So he's got a very fixed, a very storybook idea of what Africa looks like, and it's almost like he can see these people travelling over the ocean. All the while in the background, we've got this gentle quarrelling, this bickering of brothers, just highlighting the ease of their relationship. Then they head off to the train station, and this is quite an interesting episode, what happens here. So this starts on page 142. Joe has gone down to the basement area to use the bathroom on his own. Maurice has stayed in the train station, and as he comes up the stairs, there are two gendarmes standing in front of him. And they ask him what he's doing. And Joe comes up with this very impressive lie. He tells them that he lives in Marseille. He builds in this story of the cinema that they've been to. Yeah, I live there. He gets a bit carried away. He says, c'est mon père qui est propriétaire, so my dad's the owner. And he goes on to say, the voice of the author, je sais que s'il ne m'arrête pas tout de suite, je vais leur raconter que nous possédons tout Marseille. So I know that if they don't stop me straight away, I'm going to tell them that we own all of Marseille. So he's really getting into this lie. And the gendarme say to him, well, where's your dad? And he says, he's over there. Of course he's not. So Joe heads off towards this man. And he puts on this big act. This is on page 146. He goes up to the man and very, very expressively asks him what the time is. And the guy says to him, tu ne sais pas lire l'heure, can't you tell the time? And Joe, all the while with this great big fixed smile on his face, is, si, bien sûr, je sais la lire. Yeah, of course I know how to read it. But all the gendarme can see at a distance is that he is talking very happily, very animatedly to this man, and they fall for it. Maurice has had the good sense to realise that something's going on, and he's kept his distance. And then once Joe has moved away from this man, Maurice moves over and says, you know, what's happened? Joe fills him in, and they're waiting for their train when a huge number of soldiers come into the train station. This is page 148, and we have this phrase about 2/3 of the way down the page, cette fois c'est la rafle et on est dedans. So this time it's a roundup. Remember, la rafle is the word for roundup that we use specifically for the rounding up of Jewish people, and we are inside it. So it looks like, in spite of this impressive lie, they're about to get caught anyway. However, as luck would have it, at that moment, the loudspeaker announces that the train has just arrived and there's a huge crush of people running off to get seats. And they get on the train and off it goes. That's the end of their day in Marseille. So the themes in this chapter, well, the main theme is la guerre, because what we need to understand is that throughout this chapter we are seeing war as a constant presence. On the surface, it's a very laid-back, easy day in Marseille for the brothers. They have a lot of fun, they go to the cinema, they chat to the ferryman. But war is always there in the background. So, references to this. On page 128, Joe comments that whilst they've been on the train, they've been listening into other people's conversations, and that they have learnt that eux aussi avaient l'ordre d'arrêter les Juifs et de les expédier dans des camps. So they've heard that people, the soldiers in the south of France, have also been told to arrest Jews and send them off to these camps. When they go down to the sea and they talk to the ferryman on page 133, this is more about the daily hardships of war. They tell the ferryman that they're from Paris, and he asks them about, you know, what are things like in Paris, because obviously Paris is in the occupied zone and Marseille is in the free zone. So they talk a little bit about the lack of food being the hardest things, that people are having to queue up for really, really basic vegetables. And the ferryman, who's had the good fortune to be living in the south of France, says to him, "Té, regardez mon pantalon. Depuis un an, j'ai perdu 12 kilos." So even the ferryman in the free zone has managed to lose 12 kilos because of rationing. When they go to the cinema, they're watching a German film about Baron Munchausen. And even before the film starts, there is some propaganda. So before the film starts, we have this description of un petit homme à grosse moustache qui s'appelait Laval. So Laval was the French Prime Minister at the time. He was actually executed for war crimes after the Second World War. But he's there at the start of the film presenting the news, saying about all these wonderful German victories that apparently have been happening. So even on something relaxing like watching the film, they're being bombarded with German propaganda. And Joe, the narrator, on page 139, makes the comment that it's ironic that this Nazi machine that is making films actually enchanted two young Jewish boys on this particular morning. There's also a reference on page 139 to the situation with rationing. They go into a pâtisserie and they look at these improbable looking cakes dans la confection desquelles n'entrait ni œufs, ni beurre, ni sucre, ni farine. So in the making of which wasn't any eggs, butter, sugar or flour. So we can see that the restrictions, even in the free zone, are really starting to bite. And then, of course, there's the incident in the station, which is one of the more harsh realities of war. The underlying message in this chapter is that no matter where the boys go, they constantly have to be alert, constantly have to be vigilant, and they can't relax. The other two themes that come through here are, once again, le mensonge. This is very clear in the episode with Joe in the station. If he hadn't have lied, he would have been arrested, possibly Maurice as well, and they would probably have been sent to the camps. So this is a really good opportunity to get in a pluperfect with a conditional perfect phrase. So something like si Joe n'avait pas menti, if Joe hadn't lied, or si Joe avait dit la vérité, if Joe had told the truth, or si les gendarmes avaient parlé à l'homme, if the policeman had spoken to the man, and then follow that up with a conditional perfect. Les garçons auraient été arrêtés, the boys would have been arrested, or les garçons auraient été envoyés dans les camps, the boys would have been sent to the camps, something along that line. But le mensonge, very important here, because once again, by lying, and very effectively, we can see how comfortable he's becoming with lying. This has saved their skins yet again. And the other theme that we are seeing here is la chance. Yes, the boys are becoming very devious, very adept at thinking on their feet, but they do have a great amount of luck. As the German soldiers come into the train station, the announcement is made that the train has arrived. So in the crush to get on the train, the German soldiers aren't able to run proper checks. The gendarmes don't follow it up. They don't go over to the man and check that he is their dad. So always, alongside their deviousness, we've got this luck that they really benefit from throughout the novel. Okay, end of part 1.